Hi, I'm Garcella Robinson and welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, welcome. So not that long ago, I ended up buying the special edition of The Devils from the Broken Binding by Joe Abercrombie, and this was such a beautiful edition. I ended up having to do a short for it and to show you guys my haul. And with my brother, he suggested to do a buddy read. I was like, yeah, let's go ahead and do it, even though he haven't finished the book yet. But I also wanted to do I'm gonna do a recap and also give you guys my review because I didn't spend $59 for nothing. So I ended up rating this book 5 stars. Yes, I rated it 5 stars, and I'm so happy because I've been needing a 5 stars for a minute, and this book was finally able to give it to me. And one thing I have to say is Joe Abercrombie did it again. I feel like when it comes to his books, I don't even have to think. Like, I feel like it's not even a thought in my head when I'm like, oh, what is the book about? I like automatically just buy it. That's exactly what I did for The Devils, and majority of all his books have came out. And I feel like that's only with reading his first series, which was the First Law trilogy. And I have continued to read it, but The Devils was more of like, it was more of my brother just wanted to do a buddy read, so I just decided to do it too. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start off with my review and tell you guys everything that I liked about it and all the things that I didn't like about it. So once again, let's go ahead and get into it. I feel like the most thing that I liked about this book was the dynamic of the characters. I feel like especially how he played off, well, that wasn't even just the only thing. I feel like also the world building, and I feel like even with just this book, I'm already looking out for the next one. Even though with that ending, I don't know how he's going to play it, because I feel like I don't want to give any spoilers, but I do feel like this book doesn't lead into a next book. But I've heard that he might end up doing a different character arc for the second book in The Devils. The first thing that I want to say, especially with the world building, I feel like he does such a wonderful job. And I feel like even because usually when I read books, I'm like, my mind is very imaginative, and I pretty much imagine the whole thing. And when I was reading the book, there wasn't really no slip ups with describing anything or describing how the characters went through each phase or each adventure. I feel like there was no slip up. Like, I was able to imagine it every time that I picked this book up again. I feel like the only thing that I really had a problem with was the characters' names, okay? And I feel like that has nothing to do with how good the book is. Literally nothing. That's more of a me thing. But I felt like the characters' names, like, I kept pretty much confusing a lot of them, because there's Balthazar, and then they mention a Baron, and then they also, well, Baron, which was the vampire, and then they also mention Baptiste or Baptiste, one of however her name is sounded, but they mentioned all those B names, and it all sounded so similar. I feel like the only ones that I really was able to like get the hang of was Vega. Like, that was just the most like simple name. But not that I'm saying that Joe Abercrombie should make any of his characters' names simple. It was just very confusing with everybody, like majority of this group names starting with a B. Okay. But I feel like the most thing that I loved about this dynamic, because when you read the book, you notice that, like, especially with him relaying all the characters to a certain term of, like, you know, them being the devils or them having like a specific thing. I feel like it really reminded me of the Suicide Squad, but I feel like Joe Abercrombie actually made it good. He actually made it good, because like, if you think about it, like, just like in the Suicide movie, they end up getting all these villains per se, and they end up installing them with the chip. And with that chip, if they were to go against the main people's idea of what they wanted them to do, pretty much saving the world, then they would die. They would explode. And it wasn't, I feel like it wasn't as similar a part of that exploding part, but it did have a similar with binding them to the job that they wanted these devils to do. But the most thing that I loved out of the whole entire book was how funny it was. Like, I feel like it was, even though everything is so serious and they need to do what they need to do, and pretty much what sums up this whole story is they need to get Princess Alexia. They need to get Princess Alexia to her crowned position in her, pretty much in her own empire, so she could end up becoming empress, and they need to get her there safely, and they're bound to that contract by the Pope to get there. That pretty much just sums up the whole story. And the one thing that I felt like was so great was because it's such a serious thing, especially explaining all of the characters' background, like their part that played in the Devils. But the one thing that, like, it was just such a comedic relief. Like, there was so many things to laugh about. And that brings me into my last thing that I'm going to say before I end up getting into my recap. Was my favorite character, which was Balthazar. I love Balthazar so much. When I say this man was literally so hilarious, and I feel like also the reason why I loved him so much, because I feel like a lot of the characters, they just have so many things that can be relatable to different people. Like, I feel like he didn't make every character the same. You know what I'm saying? Like, he didn't make every character the same. They all had their different quirks. They all had their different two backgrounds. And they also had their own end game on how they got here, and all of it didn't align. But I feel like the one character I was able to relate to was Balthazar, because like I was saying before about them all being bound to take in Alexia to become the empress, I feel like I feel like a lot of the times, like, when you get forced into these positions, of course, they're not all agreeable. They all don't want to do this. Not all of them. Some of them have been forced because they were bound to this contract. And Balthazar was the only one I felt like that, like I was saying, I related to so much, because I feel like literally at every turn, you would not be able to stop me from trying to break this binding. I don't care if they told me like I was gonna die, whatever it's gonna be, I would not stop fighting to get out of this position that they forced me to be in. Especially with me being like somewhat of an evil person, or be seen as, different from how the dynamic of their religion seen as a devil. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I definitely would have been a Balthazar. And I feel like I would recommend this book so much. I do feel like you should start with Joe Abercrombie earlier books. But I feel like for this one, this is a very good start. At least so far as I'm reading it, it doesn't really have anything, I wouldn't say anything to do with his past releases, but I feel like those are just as enjoyable as this book. And this is definitely a good book to start with, because it is so funny, and it's also so real. Well, I wouldn't say real because it's a fantasy, it's fiction, but I would say it's very funny, and it's a very good book, and I would continue to recommend it. But this was definitely worth the 5 stars, and I'm so happy that Joe Abercrombie gave us this book. Like, I feel like it was really needed, and I really can't wait for the second book to come out. I do really hope he take a minute to actually write a good book, especially with people posting. Especially with people coming out with good books similar to this and being forced that second book out. Like, I really want him to do a really great job on that second book and actually put his time and all for the people who really want to have a great experience with this book, because so far this was definitely a good experience for me. So guys, that's the end of my video or my review, and thank you so much for watching to the end, and I really hope that you like this one. I can't wait to bring more. Of course, not on every book, but I just definitely want to give this one a spotlight because I just love Joe Abercrombie books so much, and I really hope this make you want to pick up more of his books if you haven't already. And also tell me what you guys liked in the book if you end up reading it. So thank you so much for staying to the end of the video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so I can do more reviews and do more videos for you guys. So thank you so much for watching.